Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing my personal favorite power tool, the 20-volt Dewalt drywall cutting tool, or as I refer to it as the trade name, my cordless Dewalt Rotozip. I've owned this for 7 years. I have thoroughly enjoyed this thing. This is going to be from an electrician's perspective. So let's check it out. So this review is going to be from an electrician's perspective. Now I gotta say, I'm the only electrician I've ever met who has owned one of these things. I hope there are other electricians out there who own one of these, but typically what you would see an electrician own would be one of your traditional sheetrocking knives. Now, what made me go out and buy one of these things is one specific application. When I was an apprentice electrician working on multifamily apartment construction, there was a scenario that we would have to do with these lights right here, a bathroom vanity light. So with a bathroom vanity light, you're not always going to have the plans for your countertops or your mirror in the roughen stage, especially in the hustle and bustle of get her done construction style these days. So what we would do, instead of putting a box in the rough-in process, we would snake a wire through the studs, and then after the fact, during the trim out process, when you'd have a finished wall just like you see right now in my house, then after the fact we would come in, cut in our circle for our light box. That way we can measure exactly center where we want to be. Well, this ran into a few different problems. There was a gentleman who I was working with that to get the light boxes would take a hole saw and a drill. The problem is that our plumbing comrades aren't always diligent about putting their PEX lines right smack dab in the center of the stud space where we need to center our vanity light. So what happened on 2 different occasions with this gentleman and a drill with a hole saw is he would drill through the sheetrock, thus bursting all of the PEX lines, flooding a bathroom in a finished construction trim out process. And I was so scarred by that when I was an apprentice that I went out and I bought one of these Rotozips, cordless Rotozips for my 20-volt Dewalts. Now, the reason I bought it is for this guy right here, for this adjustable depth. Now all of a sudden, I can adjust that depth to exactly my 5/8 or somewhere in there for the sheetrock for my vanity lights, and then I can get it just so that the paper is just behind on the sheetrock, and then I can just rip that paper out. And sometimes I would see 2 PEX lines just staring at me, knowing if I would have had that drill and that hole saw going through, I would be in a flooded bathroom situation. All right, let's go to the bench and check this out a little bit further. Okay, so as I said, typically you're not going to see electricians own a tool like this, but after I was the first one to buy it, I had a bunch of people on my crew always ask to borrow it, including my foreman, to which I would make jokes saying that the only reason why they keep me around is because I'm the only one with a Rotozip. So going from the initial reaction from my crew, you know, why are you buying that? That doesn't make any sense. You know, you're an electrician, you're not a sheetrocker, why do you own a Rotozip? Well, this thing has been used and abused over the last 7 years as an electrician. Now, I'm not a sheetrocker professionally, obviously, so I'm not using this thing day in and day out, but it has cut a lot of sheetrock. I've done demo with this, I've done new work, adding outlets, adding lights. I've used this to find lost wire behind sheetrock. And like I was saying with my little background story about why I even bought this thing in the first place, the big thing for me was this little guard here, to be able to set my depth in the sheetrock and not having that anxiety of hitting something behind the wall or hitting a stud or any kind of framing or duct work or anything. You're never going to have to worry about damaging anything behind a wall if you cut with this, opposed to you know, pretty much any other kind of cutting tool. Now I know there are some electricians who like the oscillating multi-tool, which I also do, own one of those, but primarily I've only used that for really plunge cut situations. I've used this for a lot of scenarios where most people would use a multi-tool. These Rotozip bits I've used have cut through cabinetry, you know, wood. I actually cut my bar sign with this thing, which let's show a clip of that bar sign real quick. After a while of using my Rotozip, I was able to get pretty fine details just freehanding the Rotozip and cutting. Right here, this is my sign for our basement bar that we named the Salty Spittoon off of SpongeBob SquarePants, if you're familiar with SpongeBob SquarePants. And we named it the Salty Spittoon. So this is about a 1/4 inch birch paneling, and I actually cut this sign with this Rotozip. So that isn't any kind of a special sign, that's just me freehanding it with a regular 1/4 inch bit on my Rotozip that I was able to cut that. So now that we've gotten my little show and tell out of the way, let's talk about this tool itself. So here's my 7 years of use of this thing. There's a model number if anybody is curious of checking that. I'm sure it's not out of the question that they've updated this since I've bought it. It does have a light on it, which is very handy. So if I turn it on real quick, you will see that light turn on there. Has a little bit of a delay after the fact, and then it will time off eventually. So I believe the RPM on this thing is pretty exceptional. I want to say it's like in the 20,000 some RPM. So I've always been terrified of hitting something with this that I wasn't supposed to, such as my finger, but I always leave this guard on. Now I've paid attention to the sheetrocking professionals on job sites, and what you always see with the sheetrocking guys is you always see them just take off this guard, and you never see them use it, and you always just see it used like this. Now I imagine the reason why they take off this guard and they don't use it is probably because they use this bit to find where our electrical is in the sheetrock, and they need to be able to use the full length of this bit in order to find the depth of that box. I imagine that's why they do it that way. If anybody is a sheetrocking professional and has a better explanation of that, I'd appreciate that in the comments down below if you could. Okay, so let's talk about my primary struggle that I've had owning this thing, and that's that the changing out the bits hasn't been the best for me. Now, since I am an electrician and I'm not using this thing day in and day out necessarily, I get a lot of life out of these little bits. So I haven't had to change out my bits, you know, a whole lot, but definitely I've changed them out, you know, dozens of times, I suppose, over the last 7 years. So the process is there's this lock and unlock. So you can see the direction of that lock and unlock right there. That's what direction you turn, and this is just kind of the release on the lock. So the idea is you hold down this button, and then you hold down this button, and then if I want to unlock, I'm moving it in the unlock direction. But the nut doesn't always cooperate smoothly. I'm not sure if that's a design flaw or if that's because of the fact that a bunch of dust and gunk gets in here and makes it difficult. So now to lock it, again, it's the same exact process, except instead of going towards the unlock, we're going to go towards the lock. So I can grab this now, start spinning that, and see, this is the issue, is so far it hasn't locked because these buttons kind of slip. How about now? Now we got her to lock. Okay. They do make different, I believe they call these little sleeves in here for Rotozips. I believe they call those cullets. Once I bought this, I think it included cullet sizes 1/4 inch, I think it was 5/32, and maybe 1/8. There's 3, and I want to say that's a different size. I've always just used the 1/4. I haven't really experimented in using any of those different sizes. I've always just used the 1/4 inch. So I have never actually changed the cullet for the sake of size. I have changed one because it broke once. So I did break my cullet, my 1/4 inch cullet, and luckily I was able just to get a replacement at a local hardware store that same day, and it wasn't really an issue at all. So now if I want to put this guard back on, it's as easy as just slipping it on like that. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Is your 20-volt Dewalt drywall cutting tool. As far as longevity goes, you have to take my word with a grain of salt. I mean, this is 7 years in, and I haven't had to replace it, considering that this gets a bunch of messy sheetrock dust all over it, and haven't had any issues with it, of it burning out or anything like that. I would say that's pretty good. I suppose I should also mention the on and off system is just one of these classic sliding button systems for on and off. So that's how you control it. So there you have it, the 20-volt Dewalt Rotozip. This is my favorite power tool I own, just because of what a joy it is to use. It's kind of fun. It's quick. When you're used to manually cutting sheetrock with one of these, what do they call these, keyless saws or something? I just call it a sheetrock saw. Once you're used to just using one of these guys, using a quick Rotozip is kind of the bee's knees, as they say, and I think that's why a bunch of my buddies were wanting to bum this on me, off of me all the time, was because they could either sit there like a scrub with their little sheetrock knife, or they can quick zip it out with one of these things, as well as having the peace of mind knowing you're not going to damage anything behind the sheetrock. All right, well, thanks for watching, everyone. Once again, if you could please like this video and subscribe to my channel, that way I can make more videos such as these, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.